Alright, the first thing you want to do is to make sure you get your rulers turned on. So if you don't see your ruler, go to View, Ruler, make sure that's checked, because everything we're going to be doing today is going to really revolve around the ruler. So just to kind of talk about the ruler, you'll notice it technically starts at 0 right here. And then the page here right now is at negative 1.25, which, so that negative 1.25 to 0 is your margin. And then you'll see over on the top here, it looks like we've got a margin of 1 inch. All right, so now we've got multiple markers on the ruler, and you'll notice this one over on the right-hand side. This is your right indent. So if I were to do a select all, I could take my right indent, and you can try this. Try moving it over to 5.5, and you'll notice that all of the paragraph right edges shift, and all your font automatically adjusts. Okay. Well, the same is going to hold true on the left-hand side. If I grab this bottom block, I'm going to be moving the left indent, which moves the whole thing. But attached to this bottom block, I've also got an upper triangle and a lower triangle. The upper triangle is my first line indent, and my second one is my hanging indent. Well, first line indent, what do you normally do when you start a new paragraph? Indent. And what do you normally press to indent? Tab. Well, if you're using a first line indent, you don't need to do that, because you can just take this, and what is the default indent that you're supposed to go in?
Isn't it like a quarter of an inch, half an inch?
Yeah, quarter to a half. Now half is kind of big here, but we'll go quarter of an inch. So we drag that in. And now, if I was typing, every time I press enter, it's automatically going to indent for me. So I don't have to keep pressing tab to create indented paragraphs. But notice what it did to acknowledgement, to introduction, my headings here. You see how those indented too? Because those are technically first lines. But if I click inside of acknowledgement, I don't need to highlight it because I'm within that paragraph. Technically it's a paragraph, even though it's a line by itself. I can drag this back to 0. And so then that shifts. Cool, right? Now, I've got a mix mash of things because I did that. So if I do a Control A to select all, notice how this triangle is now kind of grayed out. What that's telling me is it's like, hey, you've got more than one formatting option going on here. So just so you know, if you move this, it's going to change everything. So what I do want to do is I'm just going to click it, and I just reset that. So everything's back to my left edge. Now, you're writing a paper, and you need to do your citations at the end of the document. What do all citations need to have as far as formatting goes?
Date, author, published.
Okay, so that's information, but how do you have to format it? And the MLA style does this to all your citations. Yeah, so when you do it, like you've got the first line is not indented, but all the other lines are indented. It's called a hanging indent. So this is where you take just your bottom triangle. Don't grab the box, just the bottom triangle, and then bring that in. We'll go in a 1/2 inch here. So you see how the first line stayed, but all the other lines within that paragraph have come inward. That is called a hanging indent. That is how you would format a citation properly using MLA style. I'll go ahead and move that back. So that covers your ruler. Now we're going to get into the paragraph window here. And what I'll do is just pull out the paragraphs, and you can see some of the options. Right now alignment is left, and I have no indentation set. If I adjusted these indentations, it's going to change itself on the ruler. My line spacing is single. My after spacing is 6. So right now, you see this spacing that's taking place in between paragraphs? If I turn on my paragraph formatting marks, that is not a return, like a double return. That is a single return. So what's happening there is it's putting an additional space, 6 points, in between the paragraphs for me automatically. Some people don't like that. So what I want to do is I'm going to actually highlight the first two paragraphs just so you can see how this is going to happen. And there's two places you can do this. You can do this in the window I just pulled out for you, and you got spacing before and after. And also under page layout, I have a paragraph spacing section, 6 point. I'm going to knock that down to 0. So now I have no space in between my first and second paragraph. Not proper for block format. I would press enter here again. If I press enter here though, notice my spacing is bigger than 6. It's what my font is set at, so it's 9. So if I increased the font of these two sections here, let's go 18, you'll be able to see it better. See how that space in between is also bigger? So right now, I'll hide that. The space in between the paragraph is technically 18 because that's the size of the font in that paragraph. So just something to think about as you do that. But some people would rather press enter twice, so you have this paragraph marker in between, rather than letting Word do the line spacing for you. And that also, when you open a new document and you create it and you're typing and all of a sudden you're like, wow, there's a lot of space in between my paragraphs, that's how you would fix that if you can't figure out why it's doing it. Alright, so we talked about these indents. Cool. Computer's freezing. Patience, patience. Alright. It's back. Alright, so one thing I didn't talk about are negative indents. Well, if I highlight this paragraph, notice this is grayed out. As I mentioned, this is technically negative 1.25. I could bring a paragraph into the margin. That would be considered a negative indent. Wow, my computer's really struggling today. Alright, well I think the next thing on here was shading a paragraph. Come on, instructions. Pause this while my computer kid. Alright, so we'll go ahead and do paragraph shading. Paragraph shading is going to be fun. You got your paragraph formatting options here. I can drop this down. Now, when you do a paragraph shade, you don't want to do something crazy where you can't read your paragraph anymore. So I like to use the light grays, especially if I'm going to be printing this. So you can actually just hover over these and see how these light grays will work with the paint bucket. If you're going to be printing in color, you could jump to different colors here as well. I can also add a border around it. So I'll do an outside border. So maybe you really want to highlight a section. This is where you would shade it and do a border as well. Wow, just right there. Formatting a bulleted list is just like we would do in PowerPoint. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if there's a section in, okay, yeah, we have some sections down here. So first of all, let's highlight, you see where we get down here and you have the bulleted list of possessions of working under the influence, and then it goes right through situations. Go ahead and highlight that. And then we're going to clear the formatting on it. Because I want to show you, first of all, how to create a bulleted list from scratch, even though it's just like doing it in PowerPoint. You'll notice up on your paragraph formatting toolbar, you've got this bullet section right here. I can also drop this down and I can choose different designs of bullets, but we're going to get even more into it. But just go ahead and click it for right now. And right now you're going to notice it applied the bullets fairly nicely. Well, what I have here, if you notice on my ruler, is my indenting has changed. So the first, or the top line indent, is where does the bullet rest? And then the second one is where does the text begin? So I can change that if I don't like it. Maybe I want to push the text back right up against here. Or maybe I want to just move my bullet in. So I can shift the bullet around and so forth. Now the other thing we can do, as I said, is we can go in and define a new bullet. We can even define a picture if we want. So if we have a small picture of something, that could be our bullet. We can choose new symbols. So we can, well, I'll just use this asterisk one for example. Press OK. And so now I've got these big asterisks as my bullet. I can change the color of those bullets. So there's different things you can do to that. I don't think I have a good picture one that I could use. Oh, I went offline again. Change your alignment of it on how you want the bullets to be formatted. The other thing, just like in PowerPoint, is I can come to here and I can press enter, creates a new bullet for me automatically, but then I can press tab and it's going to go to a secondary level bullet. Again, tab again. How do I get backwards from those bullets? I don't want to go backspace, 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 and then try to start typing or create a new bullet like this. See, when I press enter, it's not working. What's the proper way to get back to my original bullet? Shift tab. Shift tab will, so if you see I do shift tab, it will advance and decrease. You can also use these indent markers on the paragraph. So setting up tabs. When you press tab, you already mentioned how it automatically goes in a predefined amount. Well, let's say I'm going to be doing a table of contents. I'm just going to do this right in the middle here for time's sake. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. Okay. If I press tab right now, it just goes over to right there to my half-inch mark. But what I can do is I can come over here and I can set tabs. And I can change my tabs up here and I can drag these or click on my ruler to set that up. But I like to go into the paragraph formatting mark and click on tabs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tab stop at 5. I want it to be right aligned and I want it to have a leader. So now when I press, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in story 1 and I can tab and notice how it did all those dots automatically for me. Page 5. Come here. Story 2. Tab. Oh, I did not, when I did this, I did not have all of those highlighted when I set that up. So that is important. Tab stop, right, leader, okay. Press tab, page 10. And it's right aligning my tab stop here. I hate when people hold down the period key to do that. That is not proper. So that's how you use tab stops. And that finishes chapter 4.